Good morning, everyone. Today, we already had the first lecture by Mariam Karimi on migrants integration and the role of information technology-based solutions. Now, along the same path, we continue with the last lecture of this very full week of summer school with Olga Usachova, which who I'm glad to introduce. Olga is a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Padova, in Italian. She works on the investigation of the socio-technical encounters of digital technology used by and designed for migrants' inclusion to the society. She has several projects. Her main interest is related to the role of digital technology in fostering the inclusion process of migrants and refugees, so very much in the line of the previous lecture. The title of her presentation is The Digital Divide and Social Inclusion of Forced Migrants Communities. Olga, I give you the floor. Let me just remind you that it would be great if you could make a presentation lasting like 45 minutes so that we can collect questions and try to close at 1:10, let's say, 1:10. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for this nice presentation. I just would like to share my screen and then I will get to go. Okay, so I hope you see my screen by now. Okay, perfect. So, okay. So first of all, thank you very much for this invitation, and that is true that I had this nice introduction that I'm a postdoc at University of Padova. However, also I have some updates as I'm in this particular moment visiting research fellow at University of Luxembourg. So I have to say good morning, almost afternoon from Luxembourg to everyone. And I would like first to express my gratitude for Jean Monnet Center for Excellence on the Integration of Migrants in Europe, University of Usachova, for inviting me to present my work at this summer training school. Also, I'm very much grateful to take part of this summer school, and I'm honored to offer you today the overview of my work. I also think this is a nice occasion to have intellectual debate across the disciplines as migration studies, border studies, science and technology studies, human geography, and other correlated fields. I would also like to apologize that I was not able to join you in person today in Viterbo, but I hope we will have a productive discussion through the screen. Just a remark in case for some technical issue or I don't know, English language you cannot follow me properly, or please give me a hint or if you have any burning question. So please raise your hands, but I would prefer if you just speak it out so I can hear you, and I will be happy to answer or to intervene in this case. All right, so let's get it started. I was just not sure about my introduction, so I've just prepared a slide about my background, who I am, because I guess it's important to know from which standpoint I'm going to present today. So I have background in cooperation and development studies. I've been previously doing my master's at University of Pavia in Italy, and then I had experience working as humanitarian worker. Particularly in 2015-16, then it was outbreak of the war in Syria. And so I've been stationed in Turkey, in Gaziantep, and then in Beirut, in Lebanon. So in this case, just to underline that I also have this say professional experience in this area. As well, I have background in sociology. As it was mentioned before, I had my PhD recently from the University of Padova. Moreover, my rather specialization among sociology and science and technology studies. Yeah, I'm a member of the so-called PASTIS research unit, so Padova Science and Technology Studies. Yeah, so I already mentioned that now I'm based in Luxembourg for some time. And also, I just would like to say that I'm also co-chair of independent scholarly network that is called STS MICTEC. I also think some of you might know about this network already, but some of you might not know. So I'm really inviting you to follow news of the network, because we're organizing annual workshop where you can present your work, as well as different bunch of other activities as a cycle, kind of introduction of your work, so that you can receive the feedback from the experts in the field. But also we have a reading group, so you are more than welcome to follow us via Twitter, but also if you want, you can just drop a mail to me. So by that, just to kind of summarize where I am standing for, as my research interest is on rather digital tech for good, so software studies in general, and migration technologies. Okay, so by saying that, you can see what rather the outline of my lecture today. So there are many things that I would like to speak to you today. However, first, since I would imagine we are all coming from different backgrounds, I would like to reflect on different concepts that are already listed in my title of my presentation, but also to reflect a bit how I'm working with these themes, and what is my point of inspiration in the scientific literature. Also to position myself in this rapidly evolving field, perhaps also for you kind of to paint the picture of many different directions where one can take to make your own research. So this is only one of the direction to think about this topic, what I will be presenting today. But as I told you, I hope to give you maybe a broader overview. So I will try to do it by discussing different concepts around digital technology, migration governance, relation between digitality and migration, and the way in which we can study those phenomena as scholars. At the same time, I would like also to give you a glimpse on the methods I was employing for my research, and then to present examples of how the script of integration particularly embedded in my study object, and in particular here referring to the refugee apps. So the second part of this presentation is basically based on my research that I conducted during my PhD thesis. And so I will start with the first part, which was kind of positioning myself, bringing several fields together, such as digital migration studies and science technology studies. And but we also can see in the recent decades that this field is becoming more and more interwoven thanks to the cross-cutting narratives of the use of the digital technologies in different spheres of life, and especially by the people on the move. At the same time, maybe I have also to give you a small premise here, that I'm aware that it's the last lecture of the series of lectures you have throughout the week. So in case I might repeat something, but I hope so not. So please bear with me, and I'm more than welcome you to have also discussion at the end of my presentation. All right, so as already pointed, so I will be speaking rather everything which is related to apps and smartphones, and they are used in the migration governance. So if maybe some of you remember, in 2015-16, this is how basically the outbreak of so-called refugee crisis was portrayed in Western media, especially. We could find different news outlets. For example, here I just brought some examples from Euronews. It's a rather recent one published in 2020 that is also suggesting us that, okay, there is a world day without mobile phones, but actually it's not always possible if you are a refugee. Yeah, so and that also make us reflect on this privilege also of disconnection in a way. But also some articles that published a bit early in 2015, we see that smartphones were taken as a lifeline or liability, or discussing different options of how, with the growth of social media, refugees and migrants in particular, or people in the move, we put it in a broader way, using these devices. Moreover, we might I've also seen the pictures like this coming from different media, and in particularly speaking about the importance of digital infrastructures and connectivity between refugees and people on the move. Also it makes us reflect on how important and how important the digital infrastructures are, and also how this infrastructure is embedded in a bigger network of electricity infrastructures, or something very, very basic ones. So all this makes us to speak about and reflect of the refugee connectivity. We might see in recent years a lot of reports coming from UNHCR here, for example, or different other bodies of UN and others responsible for refugee integration or social inclusion of refugees, but also the attention of scholars in the recent decade came also to the point to kind of link the integration and social inclusion of refugees with the digital technologies. If we're speaking about the scholarly debate, I would like just to draw your attention for several papers, several works that I guess very much crucial in this area. One of them is the work of Miriam Giorgio from LSE, from School of Economics. Then she also states that smartphone as a lifeline, information source, memory carrier, witnessing mechanism, and companion, as well as the study of Katja Kaufmann, that she investigates how the Syrian refugee, in particular in the city of Vienna, navigating different bureaucratic issues, but also organizing their everyday life. So stating that without nutrition, they can proceed for 1 or 2 days, but without electricity or without smartphone, it becomes difficult. All these narratives coming also and make us reflect, but also coming to see the different field of immigration studies, so-called digital migration studies, that, in my opinion, been coined by the scholars in Netherlands. In particular, I'm speaking here about the Koen Loers and his work on the digital migration studies, also Sandra Ponzanesi. Here you see also Kevin Smets, Delzu. So it's more and more developing, let's say, in the latest decade. However, here, as I gave you premise, I also will be speaking a part of my research that I conducted in Germany. So also I would like to bring some attention to the examples how the Western media, particularly German media, portrayed this particular moment of arrival of refugees to Germany in 2015-16. Okay, so here we see different newspapers from Germany. Unfortunately, the titles only in German, but may all kind of underlying Mittelbayerische Zeitung, underlying this question, why refugees have a smartphone, right? Then also saying, okay, they have Viber, and so what kind of applications they have in their phone, what they're actually doing with this smartphone. And then the Süddeutsche Zeitung saying us that smartphone for refugees is not actually a luxury. It's kind of indispensable tool to survive. So in this way, we can see that cell phones and smartphones in particular slowly became indispensable object of what they use in different parts of the world and play an important role in the context of migration. There are many other more studies being conducted on the use of the smartphones in the past decades, maybe just to mention a few of them. Additionally, from what I already said, is a study of Marie Gillespie investigating the use of smartphones in the Syrian refugee camp in Jordan. So the massive arrival of asylum seekers in Germany starting in 2015 received wide coverage, as we can see, and including how they use smartphones to navigate unknown places, usually referring to geolocation applications such as GPS and Google Maps, also money transfer services and similar information services, which helped them orient themselves in Europe. So in this situation, the smartphone has been called what is called in Germany Fluchthelfer, so that we can translate sort of escape or flight helper. In this manner, digital platforms and mobile applications in particular are seen as easy to use and accessible for almost everyone who possesses a smartphone. And in this case, refugee apps are seen by developers as a technological tool of empowerment, which not only helps asylum seekers orient themselves in new places more quickly, but also improves the work of the governmental officials responsible for information governance of asylum seekers. By saying that, we also can reflect of technology and refugees, just to kind of wrap up it, of the so-called refugee crisis, or as Romhild and colleagues calling the long summer of migration, and in particular Germany, and we can say that 1.5 million asylum applications from people coming mostly from Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq, being from 2015. And smartphones also important as a resource akin to food to address the information instability and precarity. Also speaking about the connected refugees here, the study of Dana Divinescu of the that speaks about the manifesto of connected migrant. So all these events, let's say, made the rise of the digital social initiatives for refugees in various areas, various supports as health, language support, access to public administration services, as well as social inclusion of refugees and host societies. That makes also impact on the developing what I call refugee apps. Probably until now it's not super clear for what is refugee apps exactly, but I'm coming to that point. So as we see, the increased number of digital artifacts together with the growing number of displaced people around the globe offer opportunities for new approaches for managing refugee situations, such as enhanced use of technology to solve problems in humanitarian settings. And technology has shown promise in many ways, such as facilitating the operations also of aid organizations and providing a means of communication among displaced people. Yet there is room to expand and improve technology use and effectiveness, and also make a critical stand here, as probably already heard from some lectures who were speaking before me on this automation and critical migration studies. So there are multiple ways in which technology can be used in the refugee context, for example, providing internet connectivity and access, supporting communication with family and friends, providing education and employment opportunities, as well as facilitating distribution of housing and other resources, and providing a record of information about the displaced person identities. Also the refugees place a high value on internet and mobile connectivity, which allows them to keep in touch with family and friends, maintain documentation regarding their identity and experiences, and also access information and support. So although many uses of technology have been developed specifically for refugee situations, most refugees typically rely instead of mainstream platforms, as we all might know by now, such as Facebook, WhatsApp, and YouTube. Criticism of the sizable amount of technology developed specifically for refugees is that much of it has been launched but not maintained. I guess it's also been addressed in previous lectures, this is what I have heard, leading to the prevalence of so-called digital litter. So it's a trail of outdated information, broken links, the false impression of digital tools. So in this way, aid providers also use, let's say, various technologies to coordinate and manage their activities in supporting refugees, communicate about the availability of assistance, and distribute assistance. So they use digital technologies to collect and analyze field and program data, registration data, survey responses, location information, and qualitative data, as well as other information from refugees, partner organizations, and publicly available sources. So, and with this increasing reliance on data and in aid operations, and particularly, there is a need for humanitarian organizations also to improve their technical capacity for managing and securing such data. Also, the growing use of cash assistance for aid distributions, which can rely on such technologies as blockchain, for example, for recording transactions, biometrics, for identity, and the credit card systems. So a key gap is needed. Is the need for refugees to have accepted proofs of identity for such needs as banking, purchasing, employment, and registration for services. In this way, technological solutions present an opportunity from one side to help to fill this gap. But although the policies that govern digital identity remain still undeveloped and need some critical stance and understanding. So as I already partially mentioned, what kind of uses of technology might be happening here. So refugees reported diverse uses of the technology that can be grouped in the following categories. Probably it's not new for all of you. So it's a communication. So the vast majority of refugees across mostly all countries stated that they most frequently use digital technology for communication with family, friends, and others. Also, some of the refugees expressing the sense of duty to share information, such as about access to services and assistance online with a wider audience beyond family and friends. Also retrieving the information for journeys and settling in new locations so that the internet connectivity was available. Refugees use technology, especially transportation related technology, right, to assist their journeys from their home countries to the settle into their new locations. As well as the languages, right? So the different using digital tools to learn language, but also rather to help them translate during the journey, to using the translation services. Education involve adults and children use digital technology to support their education, especially through the different applications. But also just finding and retrieving information from different platforms. Employment applications, also some recent examples also from Italy, from some project that developing application for refugees to help them with the access to the labor market, to seek employment opportunities, also maybe to follow the job trends or keep up to date with the skills important to their careers and pursue self-employment and entrepreneurship, as well as the faith-based activity. So some refugees discussing using digital technology for religious purposes, including accessing the Quran and assistance opportunities at local churches. Healthcare, so access to the healthcare, but also to understanding rather how the different, let's say, healthcare providers work in different European countries. In this case, identity management, right, described the digital technology, particular smartphones and cloud-based resources, how to save, share, and acquire documents related to their personal identities, educational and professional qualifications, as well as money management, right? So access to the electronic money management and also connecting different operations of these credit and debit cards. All right, so now just by giving this overview, I just would like to maybe give you some rather theoretical or say grouping activities on the integration as a framework, all these events and that I was describing and how the digital technology comes in. So in this table, I hope you see better. I'm sorry for it, maybe not that visible very well, but anyway, so I tried to group of scholarly literature basically present up to date. And I have to say, here I emphasize that all the scholarly debate around the term of integration, it's quite a growing number of literature on that, as well as social inclusion. So, and also the difference between all these two key terms when we speak about the refugees and migrants in general. So, as we can see, the scholarly debate were rather around the object of the study. So, who was the main object to study? So, all newcomers, and then changes in the ideas and behaviors. So this is the one way how literature shows us we can study integration or receiving society and its reactions to the newcomers. Then it can be also dimensions of the process of settlement. So we have also here the legal and political dimensions. So we're speaking about legal residence, citizenship, and voting rights, as well as socioeconomic. So immigrants' access to healthcare, education, housing, and labor market, as well as the cultural. So, for example, religious aspects. And then we can also kind of dig deeper on the level of analysis. So we have here individual newcomers, collective groups, civil society representatives, and governmental institutions. So this is just my attempt, maybe just to group and understand what is in the field up to date, but I am more than welcome to answer all your questions that I'm sure will be popping a bit later after my presentation. Just to give you this as a background, as a framework, right? So, and now, basically, while I'm speaking about the refugee apps, so what I particularly mean by that, right? So here are the basically apps. Again, I was taking this example of Germany pretty much, but we can see, okay, there is just a few of them, but there are more than 100. So, and if you ever may be interested or you already know something, if you just go and investigate in the main, the bigger stores, and refer to the app stores on the Google Play, so you can see much more of them. So these applications rather were developed by different actors. Some of them were developed by the government. For example, Uncommon is developed by Federal Office of Migration in Germany in 2015. For example, Integrate, this is a yellow one, which is under Uncommon. So it's developed by volunteers rather in the city of Augsburg in Germany, and many others. So they also you see the Goethe Institute for other more developed German courses for refugees and newcomers, as well as they for training and address different audiences, right? So we see Kahir Kinder. Speaking about the children who are in the migration process. All right. So the question is, how do we study? How do we study apps? How do we study digital technologies used by refugees? Right. So I just give you a very brief overview of the methods that I did employ for my research, and yeah. Okay. So basically, it's not a secret. So I'm coming from say qualitative researcher. So I use semi-structured interviews. But also, as I mentioned previously, I rather take stand on the science and technology studies. So the whole method with my interviews, what I was applying, it's basically what I called follow the digital, or follow the actors, very much embedded on actor network theory. I'm not going to give a lecture here about actor network theory, but just to let you know from where it comes. That was interviews with app developers, representatives of municipalities, because these apps implemented by different municipalities who are responsible for the content of the apps, and users, so in this case, the refugees, but also the social workers. Yeah, so in my case, these interviews were in a blended mode, so online. As yes, as
Olga, we lost you for 20 seconds.
Okay. Very sorry for that. So yeah, but I guess you hear. So basically, I speak about methods, and I guess you hear that, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. You can hear me now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm continuing then. So yeah, so just a bit recap on the methods. So it's a semi-structured interviews what I did with different stakeholders. So it's app developers, representatives of municipalities, and users, so-called refugees and social workers. But also in my particular case, as I was telling, I was conducted in a blended mood as yeah, I had to conduct my field work during the outbreak of coronavirus. And this is another, let's say, challenge to have it. Right, but also, okay. I have used the participant observation. So basically, I was trying to embed myself in the field and during different events organized for refugees and with refugees, Munich and Augsburg in particular, so language courses, as well as cooking together, participating in different developers conference to understand rather strategies of the developers, but also what I actually did, and not gonna really expand on this today, so the track of open source code development and trying basically to understand trackers and permissions that apps asking for refugees while they are downloaded. All right, but saying that, I just invite you to go with me on a bit more, let's say, theoretical stuff, right? So as a theoretical ground of how I approach this topic is rather my inspiration was science and technology, in particular this book that I displayed here. So by Peter Paul Verbeek, What Things Do, on philosophical reflections of technology, agency, and design. In this case, I was kind of replacing or thinking with and taking this research question of what refugee apps actually do, how do they actually function, and what kind of agency these apps develop in social inclusion of refugees. And then also the question what I've been interested in is how do apps construct actor networks that enact inclusion practices, right? So how, in other words, maybe how do refugee apps do it, right? So what they do and how. So yes, as I had inspiration on the actor network theories, on so on the refugee apps, I see as in actors in facilitating the construction of actor networks and inclusion processes. And what I try to do with my work is rather move beyond the descriptive account of how apps designed to rather on the critical understanding of the agency of this app and understanding of what actually a network. Yeah, so this actor network perspective basically bringing this field of humans and non-humans and saying that, okay, they are never act alone. So there is actually something broader than that. As well as this so refugee inclusion process in this case can be seen from the perspective of constructing these actor networks to enact different practices. In this view, refugee app can be seen as a capable actor, so can take pictures, can act as a record audio, connect to information. In this case, providing additional competencies for the human, and refugee app also can be seen as so-called black box, so something that user cannot easily understand the algorithms or basically the code behind the app, understand all the background process, how does it work. Yeah, so speak on that, also just to address so this theoretical stand on that. Also understand that all these digital narratives that are happening to be developed in Germany, in particular in my case, and embedded in so-called digital agenda. Here is an example of digital agenda 2022, but also this other kind of screenshot saying that, okay, so integration and of refugees and also smartphone and how that will be working together, all these promises. Sorry. So following the arrival of refugees in 2015-16, so governmental and non-profit institutions kind of green-locked to provide support to newly arrived asylum seekers, which led to the emergence of opportunities for new actors. And such actors supported information provision to asylum seekers through governmental or non-governmental initiatives by propagating so-called new promising technological artifacts. So keeping this principle in mind, we can distinguish between kind of two types of actors that play a role in the emergence and development of the digital technologies for refugees. From one side, we have these governmental actors, and also we have the third sector actors. So in this sense, also we can see that at the national level, in particular here, the Federal Office of Migration, also BAMF, has adopted a digital transformation strategy, right? So taking a look at the presentation of the digital future agenda, the similarities of BAMF with the commercial agencies and multinational corporations quite visible, more so than the state agencies. And this digitalization agenda of 2020, but also this new 2022, the main aim in 2016, so quite some time ago, was to become, and here I cite, digital briefing public authority by 2020. So to this end, BAMF stays on the pulse of the times and testing and implementing various new technologies in migration governance. So particular attention has been paid to digitalizing the asylum procedure by BAMF positioned itself as a pioneer. And this involves the introduction of also blockchain technology, but as well as automation of speech analysis software to determine the origin of asylum seekers, which was viewed very critically by scholars, but society in general. So overall, the digitalization process involves not only asylum procedures, but also the integration process of refugees, right? We also see the strong interest of supporting refugees with digital artifacts among volunteers of non-profit organizations and refugees themselves. So the main purpose of involvement in such initiatives was to create opportunities for refugees to reclaim their agency, but also with media attention across the world, they transformed the language of the European migration debate, and attention has been brought to the struggles people experiencing on the way to Europe. This all have also given, let's say, the platform or the push for creating different tech communities. So maybe some of you heard about the tech refugees, and that's trying to understand how can we help humanitarians and refugees with technologies, with technological potential and advancements. So, and from this, we have also different other communities as schools for digital integration, for example, that operates as well as different hackathons that mean to develop kind of quick solutions for refugee integration. So thanks to these events, hackathons and other gatherings, like-minded people gathered around the topic to find a quick solution to this situation. But however, we have to be also critical on that, and with other scholars, we have to keep in mind that digital technology plays a role in promoting these forms of activism for and with refugees, but as well as promoting so-called public-private partnership that can advance refugee inclusion. Saying that, just to show you some example of apps of what I've been focusing, so as I already mentioned on Comment, but then in the video we have Integrate, as well as Ambion. So these all apps developed more or less in 2015 in Germany. Some of them, for example, Integrate still exist. Other two apps still exist, I have to say, but their updates is a bit questionable. However, just to give you a brief overview, what is this exactly app? So I will focus on the one app, is Integrate. So it's founded in 2015, as I told you, the response for the so-called refugee crisis. And basically, the platform provides basic information about different services for migrants and refugees, as a counseling centers and initiatives, information about access to the translations support services, also German languages, finance, healthcare, and access, and so on. So basically, it aims to tackle the issue of the poor access to information for newly arrived refugees. It's created based on the personal observation and needs of the refugees by developers, and operating in the both forms as a web platform, but also as a mobile application. Now implemented in more than 65 municipalities across Germany. However, just to give you a very brief outlook of it, so-called integrate actor network. So it's a very simplified version. So there are much more actors, but just to understand how does it work. So you can see, let's say, four main actors. Again, I just have to emphasize here, actor for me also non-human. So it's the app, the digital platform in this case, the core team, users, and municipalities. And they perform different actions in this way. So just to give you how does it all work. So they are developing the platform, but also the core team developing platform, but also digital platform is the basis for providing information, but also can come with the feedback back to the core team. The municipality is responsible for the provision of the content, so they compile and maintain up-to-date information, or supposed to do so for asylum seekers, and then users supposed to consult information and provide it via the platform. So by coming to the question that I've been interested so far, what refugee apps actually do, I divided, or I found these, let's say, four things. So in information provision, they provide background information, right, on the services and practices users aim to access. Some apps provide more accessible information by implementing search functions as well as paying attention to different languages. So then we have this action stimulation, what I call. So refugee apps support users with guidance around often complex procedures of the asylum application, at the same time stimulating the organization of the activities, such as scheduling the meeting with the migration counselor. They also foster the connection, so the users able to connect with other actors, social workers, and also the online connection usually continued in offline world or offline setting. And then the personal development, right? So they provide space for the development of the personal competencies of the users, such as German language, the language orientation, as well as the language support. Okay, so however, just coming for some quotes of my interviewees. So how do they use this app in practice, right? If they use it all. So and here I guess becoming the most interesting part of all my research in my lecture today. So some refugees saying like, okay, thanks to app here, there are many questions that pop up in your mind, especially when you get yourself into the new society. You think, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to ask this question, or that because of who. So having answer from the app is much easier and much better. So from one sense, so the refugees who are speaking, telling me that, okay, so it's important for the information provision because they are not aware what of the cultural differences, if they can ask such question or not. So yeah, so in some point apps also helping to understand where you can receive food or shelter, as well as here, app also sort of a mediator, in this case, guided to a place where the person can meet the consultant and ask all the questions potentially. So as I already told you, so how refugee apps works in practice. So this construction of actor network happens through the involvement of the human agency and always situated, in other words, dependent on environment and the competencies of user. And here is also very much speaking of these literacy skills, and first, and then the language competencies. And then despite the empowerment narrative, also refugee app takes rather twofold position. So from one side as a capable actor, but also from another side, we don't really know, or user doesn't know what exactly app do in terms of doing trackers and permissions. So by this, I'm coming almost to the end of my presentation, but probably just leaving you food for thought, so take away from what I've been introducing to you today. So yes, by employing this method of following the app, it needs rather adoption to constant change. So the location and language-based algorithm might assign you different consultant based on the availability, online, offline, and then following the app to following the consultant. So in the end, the app can be seen only as a mediator to other actions in say physical presence. Then the biggest issue actually that I encountered during my whole field work is trying to find the user of this app. So as I told you, the apps rather were developed in 2015-16. And then what I have found and had difficulties with actually this understanding who exactly using this app. And then how the shift of the understanding of the user from the refugee to the social worker in now after more than 5 years it happened. So also these typical breakups and dropouts of consultant and availability to fulfill the request of the user, also the app connection interruptions. Just driven rather from the practices of use to the practices of non-use. And also, as we see, limited resources to support the staff as financial as well as the human. to kind of address these disruptions successfully. And then the performance of app use achieved in the, let's say, wider social material constellation. Trying to understand from who's the user to this point of why refugees, migrants will not use this app, right? So, and together with these app performance interruptions, app dissemination has quite little outreach, or it was kind of disseminated in 2015-16, but now it's not anymore kind of promoted. So just a number of people know about the existence of this app. And then, so the lack of what I call app introduction training, or messiness also, what I say, from identification who's user, or as maybe some people coming from design field of this persona for who this app designed is rather nowadays very broad, like app for everyone who might be interested, but then we might come to this question for everyone and to no one, basically. Okay, so on that point, I just give you very brief overview of my research, but I guess I'm perfectly on time on that. So I would like to also to maybe open the discussion now. And I was thinking about some questions that have come up in my mind, but I just would like to give them as a question for stimulating this discussion. And I would like to also, with this kind of open floor, with your comments, maybe some curiosities, but maybe also to know more about your project, what you actually doing. So basically, what propose on this point to reflect is about what are the potential pitfalls of so-called tech for good. I mean, it doesn't need to be necessarily refugee apps, but also different other technologies using in migration governance. So, and how this integration scripts embedded in these different technologies, and then may these refugee apps be the solution for the refugee integration in the host community, or what's your opinion or maybe experience with? So on this note, I'm very much thankful for your time and very much looking for our discussion. Yeah, and feel free to ask me questions also by mail, and follow me on Twitter if you want. So at this moment, I guess I might stop sharing my screen. Okay, I don't hear you. I guess you muted.
Thank you very much, Olga.
Okay.
I think we can start with the discussion. We can collect a few questions. Please remind that we should stop by 1:10, but we have like 30 minutes. You were great in managed times. Thank you very much. So there is sufficient room for discussion. Let's see if there are hands raised online or in class. I understand that, but still we have the opportunity to discuss.
One.
Mirko, please.
Welcome, thank you very much for the lecture. Thank you very much for the presentation. Question that would be interesting to elaborate on.
Well, I'm very sorry. I really hear very little, so I'm not sure if it's possible kind of to come closer or.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hello, Olga.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for the kind invitation. Thank you for being here. Question could be, I think, what is the role of private suppliers of tech companies in designing and developing the refugee apps? So, I think from a socio-political perspective, but also from a legal perspective, I think. So the accountability framework of such subjects. Thank you very much.
Right. Yes, thank you. I don't know, do we collect questions or?
Yes, while the others, still reflecting, I think it's appropriate that you address the question. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I can answer, right? Okay. Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the question, actually, and also very nice to see you in this setting. Yeah, it's very nice, actually, also to think maybe beyond what is refugee apps and what are the suppliers, or what I would call private public partnerships in this case. And it's not also only the case of the refugee apps per se, but any other, let's say, information systems that are implemented now by the public administration in many countries. By reflecting on them, actually, recently I'm kind of working on the chapter about these public-private partnerships and these migration governance technologies. And so I would say there are gaps and kind of huge interest also from different companies. As for example, I might say in these refugee apps, in particular of the Uncommon app. So as it was mentioned, so it's a governmental app developed by Federal Office of Migration in Germany, but obviously commissioned to be developed by a third party, by the third company. So, and I was personally trying to understand what is this company, how is it existing actually now, or what is happening. So, and then I could not really trace back this company. So it was something that basically kind of was functioning in 2015-16, and then after it developed, it disappeared. And all these questions, so what has happened with the data, where is stored, and how is handled, basically, it's a big question. And in this case, I have to reflect. I guess it's nice, the field of debate, or just to put our attention to that. But also, I guess, also is emerging in the case of bigger information infrastructures. I don't know, as in Italy, but for example, here and present in the University of Luxembourg is basically a lot of these digital infrastructures, and a lot of embedded companies in this. That, for example, SAP is supporting the whole university infrastructure here. And so then the case where the whole information, all the data goes, and needs to have the reflection, but also, not only from the social perspective, but also from the legal in this case. Well, I don't know if it's satisfying your interest, but I guess it's the starting point of debate, and also my interest. Okay.
Thank you, Olga. We have another question in person. Be careful to my new computer.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, thank you very much for us.
Okay.
And so I guess this is more of a discussion subject than a question, because on the last slides, one of the things that you questioned was if this would be a solution, right, to have refugee apps. And I was just wondering, in this case, especially in the context of refugee integration, if we are thinking that it is very important, it's a two-way process, and it's very important that both the host community and also the incoming refugees are kind of trying to be open and integrate with each other, then could we assume that apps would make it a little bit distant for the individuals to integrate and to make it easier? Maybe it could be, just as an assumption, maybe it could be more efficient for the refugees to be, and it may be faster for the refugees to integrate when there is an actual mediator or person, or maybe apps could be a great add-on to kind of provide introduction and start integration process in the society. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamta. Let's collect also, if you agree,
Yes.
the question of Isabel.
Hello, hi. First, thank you for the presentation. And what I was thinking about is exactly about the topic of integration. And I think the apps, they may provide integration if you think about a rights-based approach. So they can help people to access their rights or to know what are their rights and how to access them. But then I think also what the colleague also said, that these don't necessarily means that they will have integration with the local community. So if you have apps designed especially for refugees, okay, you are making it possible for them to access information, but then is it enough for local integration? I don't think so. But then we may be talking about what is the perspective of local integration. So what are the government's limitation on how do they see what is enough for them to do to integrate? What is the actual objective of integration? Do they want people to really integrate, or for them it's like it's enough only to, okay, here are your rights, you can know them and then you access them, and for us it's enough. And I think one other thing is, if we think about Europe and the access of for smartphones and all that, is one thing. But for example, in other countries, this wouldn't be a sufficient answer. For example, in Brazil, if we're talking about the migration flow of people coming from Venezuela, we have people having one smartphone to share with 30 or 40 people. So this is a huge digital inequality, and this wouldn't work. So I think there are a lot of small things that we could think about on this context. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Is there more questions so I can reply?
There is another question in person, but it's up to you actually.
Well, I might reflect on this and then we take.
Okay, perfect.
Because they are going, let's say, together in a way. Yeah, well, thank you actually for this question. And I'm actually very happy that you have such questions, because it's supposed to be also a bit provocative in a way. So kind of be critical and don't believe all the things that someone writing about. Yeah, so yeah, this question if app can be the solution, basically, right? And if it's even not becoming, let's say, obstacle, I don't know if I can say so, of integration, yes. I guess in my personal view, it's never a solution. It's never a solution. And when we speak about integration, as I just give you a very brief framework of integration, because if we just have to speak about integration, I will need maybe a whole day, and then we all will be disagree and all the things. So yes, depends how we look to integration, and all what these apps like promoting for me is rather the, let's say, the work as an information carrier, like basic steps. Because this is also what kind of I was reflecting. So why don't I find anyone who could easily say, yes, I'm using it every day? Because honestly, it's impossible to use it every day, because information is so kind of basic. So yes, if you need to orient, you need to find some points to enter, it's okay. But then when you kind of pass this stage, it's hard to say that you are really kind of using it, or even by having it on your smartphone. This is one point. Then I totally agree also about the context. So I have to say and underline once again, I've been conducting this study in Germany, and I know, let's say, all this privilege context and of people having smartphones, so people have the opportunity to have such devices and having the opportunity to access. The thing that I guess, despite this criticality of the solutionism or techno-solutionism that we put in this way, what app exactly can do and help in this case is this availability to convey information in different languages. So this is the thing, and I would say power in this particular way. Because even in Germany, okay, there are different, let's say, cultural mediators, but in other countries as well. However, it's not that big amount. They don't have that much capacity and working hours and all the things. So in this case, for example, this integrate app, what I guess unique and why they are still, let's say, persist after all these years, and municipalities want them to have, is that they providing content in I don't know, up to 7 different languages. It depends on the municipalities and again on the translation resources and financial opportunities. But at the same time, this is, I guess, the point. Then, okay, they can provide this information. Moreover, what I've been observing is that Integrate, for example, they have app, but they have also web platform, digital platform. So, for example, if you just asking in your web browser information, I don't know, shelter for refugees or German courses for refugees in Augsburg, in Arabic, that might be that the first page that will be indexed, well, in Google, for example, it will be Integrate web platform. You might not even know that you use this platform because, yeah, but you might have it. So I guess in this case, yes. So we have always understand it's in the bigger context. So in the let's say Western countries, Western Europe, yes, I agree. So this is what I'm speaking about, and I also agree it's not the case. For example, if we speak about Asia or any other countries. So in this case, yes. So my research is very, very locative, and we have to, yeah, potentially broaden it and understand how it will work in different other contexts. Also remember of different pitfalls of who is the user and how it's going to be maintained in general. So, yeah.
Thank you, Olga. Very last question, Niall.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to appreciate you for the very interesting lecture that you give us. So my question would be like, when you talk about the development of the app, so it comes to my thought that not all migrants who know how to read and write to access the app. So what do you think about the group that cannot read and write, about their right on this matter? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for this question. Actually, yes, I didn't mention, but yeah, so again, for the example of Integrate, and this is what I guess also interesting example to study. So first of all, now the developers trying now, but again, I have to emphasize now, after more than 80 years of so-called refugee crisis, what makes it develop now, they work on implementing app for people with visual impairment. So they trying to also yeah, make people so you can just listen this. I'm not quite sure how that's supposed to work in different languages. So I know, like, well, it might work in Arabic and English, but I'm not sure others. But also, so they work on that. Moreover, again, about the language possibilities. For example, in German, they have this kind of term Einfach German, so it's kind of easy German in a way. So if you're not the native speaker, let's say, you're just learning, but you already can read something. So it's also this kind of easy language approach for people who have maybe different disabilities or different other opportunities to understand the language. So it's also different, this implementation. However, yes, let's be also critical on this point and also see it like, okay, it's happening like now after all these waves of different crises, if we put it this way. Moreover, like Integrate, they try to adapt also some information when it comes to coronavirus information and all these instructions how to behave. Now, since last year, they also adopted Ukrainian language version there, and also specific information for people coming from Ukraine. So yeah, they are developing, but again, I have to say that again, it depends on the rather human capabilities as well as the financial capabilities to do it. So, and then again, this kind of discussion, like, yeah, I don't know, at least now in the Western media, what we see, okay, kind of crisis happening, refugee crisis happening, but is somewhere in the Mediterranean, with, I don't know, Greece, Italy affected, or then we have recently people coming from Ukraine and all things. So this topic is not, let's say, on the hype now and things. So yeah, and also affecting to access to different funds to develop this application. So I totally agree, and moreover, I'm really much inviting you to continue on your own local context, because I guess this is important also to show these disparities and inequalities even of the access of the phone. I mean, not only smartphone, but also different digital literacy skills and yeah, different other disabilities. I don't know.
Thank you very much. Olga. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for your brilliant presentation and all the answers you gave. I think we can close it here. We have to wrap it up. There is a word that Daniela Vitiello wants to give as a final word. So thank you all very much for your active participation to this summer school. It has been a great success in terms of number, in terms of knowledge shared. We will keep organizing summer schools here. Yesterday we had great news of the renewal of the Center of Excellence on the Integration of Migrants. So for 3 more years we will be active. And that's it. Thank you so much. Daniela, I leave you the floor.
Just wanted to thank first of all, it's mindful of smart students and scientists, and for us that attending story and for us it's very useful.
Sorry, excuse me. Sorry for interrupting you. Excuse me, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, we have a problem. We cannot hear properly online.
Diana is a former student in our university.
I will invite Diana to say just a word of encouragement for our attendees, and then we can.
I can just say I hope you will organize the summer school in also next year coming. And to you, all of you students, I can tell you that for me it was a success to participate in a big part in the university shop, and especially in the jurisprudence in the law course. So it is something that changed my life, and I hope it will change also yours. In a better way or in a whatever way you like. Yes.
And very last word to say a huge thank to our trainers and to our staff. So I will invite you all to come here, please. It's very important for us, because we are the leaders and the architecture of the summer training school, and we want to thank you all one by one. So, Cristina Milano, Tina Alonso, Paolo Herrera, Giulia De Duco, Mirko Gotti, Gianni Roncola, Franco Enrico. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olga, for being here with us a little while later. Thank you all once again, and to the tutors. They were doing a great job this year. As you noticed, we had some technical issues today and the previous days to address, and many other unexpected situations that we had to face. I think they were brilliant at doing that, so I'm very proud of them. Thank you all, and good luck to all of you. Yes, we can take a picture of together. Yes, so jump here. Yes. Olga, thank you very much for your time and being with us. Wish you all the best, and we wish the best also to the participants who are online. We take 1 minute for some pictures and presents, so we want to leave you and set you free, and again, wishing all of you good luck with your future careers.
Thank you very much for inviting. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ok. Tiara. Posso chiudere? Chiudo? No, no,
For the first photo, is that we're going to be a photo outside, nice landscape. So these, I want to remind you that the second one, running on the street, or so really here close to the gardens, the nice restaurant, and then you want to look at the plants.
Chi fa le foto? Michele? Michele, fai tu le foto? No. Facciamo?